My name is Joseph Ruggiero. I'm a bosun mate first class. The acronym that we commonly use is BM1. Basically defines my rate and my rank. I work with MSST, which is obviously the acronym stands for Maritime Safety and Security Team in Miami, Florida. What our main job is, basically ports and waterway security. I'm on the water side division, so I'm acting as the first lieutenant, basically in charge of roughly 40 people. We deployed all over the U.S. Some of our common missions were the inauguration and the Super Bowl in Tampa. Multiple tours to overseas. I did 3 actual tours to Iraq, Bahrain, Northern Arabian Gulf is pretty much the area that I was assigned to. During the time of the attack, I was on a team, law enforcement detachment team 403. We were deployed over to the Persian Gulf from late February, and we were scheduled to stay until early June. On the morning of April 23rd, we deployed on a Navy patrol craft. The Firebolt PC-10 is the name of the ship. PC standing for Patrol Craft, 10 is just the number of the hull. We deployed with them. We got underway that afternoon on the 23rd and arrived in our operational area the morning of the 24th of April. We showed up on scene around 0700 in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning. We ended up working with the Australian Navy. From there, we ended up actually doing a boarding, using 2 of the Navy sailors to assist us, which they call their VBSS team, which is Visit Board Search and Seizure Teams. The 2 gentlemen that ended up working with us was a BM1 Mike Pernicelli and a signalman second class Christopher Watts. The significance of this boat that was coming in was very different from the norm of what you would see over there. As I mentioned earlier, the normal boats, the dhows, usually construction of wood, high stern, high bow, inboard engine, don't move very quickly, usually fishing gear, not very well kept up. It's a normal working boat, nothing pretty to look at. This boat coming in, and as I talk about this aspect, we literally probably dealt with this vessel for about 40 to 45 seconds. Obviously, I could go into grave detail about it, talking about description and everything. Luckily, I'm fortunate enough, I survived the explosion, survived the attack, and obviously I'm able to look back upon it and see the indicators now. As we're getting closer, and it's right around sunset, so the sun's just about to go down. As we're approaching the vessel, I noticed that it's pretty much almost brand new. Brand new paint job, clean boat, no fishing gear on deck whatsoever, and all I could see was one person on deck. Normally you have a crew of anywhere from 5 to 15, depending on the size of the vessel. This boat, you can only see one. As we're coming alongside trying to get the captain's attention, one of the factors that were hindering that was his outboard engines, which, again, like I said, most of the boats over there are inboard engines. The configuration of the vessel should have had an inboard engine, just the way it had a flat back stern. Should have had an inboard engine or maybe an inboard-outboard type engine. But the configuration that he had was basically like a welded steel bar on the back of the vessel with 2 outboards attached to it. That right there was an indicator of just out of the norm. Didn't look right. Trying to tell the captain of the boat to slow down, stop his boat so we can come alongside, hand him the chartlet, and let him know that he can no longer be in this area. Using hand signals and gestures, telling him to slow his boat down, cut off his engines. He eventually took waving our hands to tell him to slow down as to go away. So he was cupping his ears, trying to hear us. Obviously, like I said, the engines were pretty loud. And he waved his hand in the opposite direction, turned his boat, and started heading away from the terminal. As we're doing that, he turned around again and started heading away from the terminal. We, again, shadowed him, and violently again. He ended up turning his boat very fast, and basically started heading right towards us, either to cut us off or to ram us. Coxswain right away slammed on the throttles, turned around, tried to get away from the boat. As soon as we opened up a distance of about 15 to 20 feet, the boat exploded. In the position that I was on the boat, I was facing the boat as we're peeling away from it, trying to open up a distance. And when the explosion went off, I was basically looking at the boat. Nate Bruckenthal, who was sitting directly right across from me. Obviously, it's a 17-foot boat, 7 people, not a lot of room. We're pretty much sitting on top of one another. He was sitting directly across from me with his back towards the boat that exploded. As soon as the explosion went off, obviously, extremely loud noise ended up rupturing my eardrums along with everyone else that was on the boat. I ended up, from the initial blast, it ended up pushing my head and my shoulders into the water. Obviously, debris and parts of the vessel flying all over the place. Ended up hitting me in the arm, got shrapnel in the head and the face. But from the initial blast, it ended up pushing my head and shoulders into the water. From there, from the return blast from the suction, from what was explained to me from NCIS after and during the investigation, obviously you have your outward blast, which pushes everything out. But there's always a return that comes in where all that oxygen and all that air that was displaced from the initial blast has to come back to that spot. All the air and everything coming back in ended up grabbing our small boat and basically lifting it up and out of the water, throwing everybody in different directions. I was also holding on to the line that's attached to the boat that runs pretty much the whole perimeter of the entire boat. I was holding on to that. So when the return suction grabbed the boat, I ended up going up with the boat and basically bouncing off the sponson like a ping pong ball, going up and over until the boat flipped over and finally hit the water again, capsizing, and the force of the boat hitting the water forced me to let go of it and threw me under the water. I don't know how deep I went. Don't even remember really how long I was under the water. From my shipmates and the other Navy sailors that were on the ship said as soon as the blast went off, which they were about 100, maybe 150 yards from us when the whole blast went off. They said they didn't see anyone pretty much pop up out of the water for almost a full minute. But the first thing, obviously, is you want to stop your momentum, inflate your life jacket, normal protocol, what we're trained. Right away, I pulled my lanyard on my line that basically inflates my life jacket. For some reason, which ended up the reason being from the blast, all the shrapnel and pieces of the debris ended up just cutting through my life jacket. As soon as I inflated it, the CO2 cartridge, which inflates it, went off, but all the air did is just went in and out. I ended up looking down and could just see my life jacket shredded into pieces. Eventually, just spinning underneath the water. Being a prior surface rescue swimmer from my cutter, obviously you're taught, if you find yourself underneath the water, follow your bubble take you to the surface, just in your normal training. Eventually, stopped my momentum, and gravity pretty much took over and started pulling me to my left side. So just went with it and eventually came to the surface. Once coming to the surface and basically kind of doing a 360 in the water, trying to see where everyone is at and where this boat is, come to find out, obviously I could tell that the entire boat was basically gone. There was still debris coming down from the sky, falling into the water. Very small pieces of the boat. There was no large structure or anything left. Just small pieces of wood, small pieces of fiberglass just kind of floating on the water with little pots of oil and gasoline that caught on fire. As I'm kind of moving my arms and swimming around, I ended up hitting my hose to my camel pack, which basically is just a little backpack that plastic bladder that holds water. I knew I drank because I was wearing it pretty much all day. I drank about 3/4 of the water that was in it. Just from prior deployments, we always brainstormed and talked about, obviously we have gear that's intended for a certain use, but we also talked about, what could be used for emergency type facts and stuff like that. And obviously, as I'm swimming around and moving my arms, I hit the hose on my camelback and it ended up hitting me in the face, which made me think and realize, oh, I can blow air into my camelback, and that pretty much became my makeshift PFD or life jacket. In doing so, while I'm searching around trying to see where everything is and where everyone is at, the only person I could see at the time was Nate. He was about 20, 30 feet from me. And the reason I couldn't see anybody else is obviously it was dark, but also the capsized rib that was probably about 20 feet from me, I couldn't see over the hull. Started swimming towards Nate. Right away I could see the back of his head was severely hit several times. Had a really big open gash in the back of his head, bleeding pretty bad. His eyes were kind of rolling back and forth. I could see the whites of his eyes, kind of going in and out of consciousness. Basically he was just kind of mumbling no and what happened over and over again. Obviously confused of what happened, and he was severely hit hard in the back of the head. Put him up on my chest and just started swimming towards the small boat, get him out of the water a little bit, and reassess his injuries. As I got closer to the small boat and coming around the other side of the small boat, I noticed the qualified coxswain, the Navy sailor on the small boat, was holding on to the side of the small boat, yelling and screaming about his arm. As I got closer to him, I noticed he ended up losing about 90% of his tricep, a big chunk of his hand. My first intention was just grab the two of them and start swimming towards the ship, get us out of the water, get them medical attention and everything. In doing so, as I'm looking around to see, now I'm on the other side of the small boat, I could see where everyone else is at. I seen BM1 Mike Pernicelli, who was actually sitting directly right next to me on the small boat. He was thrown in the opposite direction, away from the ship, away from the small boat, about 50 yards from me. I knew I couldn't just take the two of them and head back to the ship. I didn't know how bad Mike Pernicelli's injuries were. So I ended up just kind of pushing Nate up onto the rib, the capsized vessel. Told OS1 Daily, just, talk to him, keep him out of the water, keep him breathing. As I'm swimming, just started swimming towards BM1. The whole thing crossed my mind, being a prior surface rescue swimmer, just thinking of C-spine, head injury, trying to, thinking of everything, what I got to do when I get to him, yelling his name the whole time as I'm swimming towards him, trying to get him to either wake up or pop his head out of the water. I ended up just grabbing Mike and put him up on my body and started swimming back towards the rib. That's when I realized that obviously we know the condition of the water, the weather and everything, prior to getting underway on a small boat. I knew there was an 8-knot current pretty much that day, and it helped me get to BM1. As I was swimming to him, I noticed, I was getting to him fairly quickly, wasn't fighting nothing. I had the current with me, pushing me towards him. And I think that's one of the reasons why he was so far away from where we were. The current was pushing him away from us. Trying to swim back towards a small boat. At this current time, the Australian Navy launched their helicopter. I could hear it coming en route. I could see the blinking lights. But obviously the ship was about 20, 30 miles away from us, but obviously their helo can get there pretty quickly. While the helicopter was low to the water trying to assist Christopher Watts, I was pretty much underneath the helo with Mike Pernicelli, trying to swim, fighting 8-knot current with a prop wash blast from the helo being so low to the water, and obviously everyone, being in the environment that I've been in the Coast Guard, been around helos and been close to them, in the water, but never actually in the water, and definitely a different experience. It's nothing easy. Basically the prop wash, picking up the water, throwing it around. It's like getting hit in the face with needles. It's nothing pretty, and it's hard to breathe, hard to see. I eventually made it back to the small boat. When I arrived at the small boat, Nate and OS1 somehow already got back to the ship. What ended up happening is the rescue swimmer jumped off the Navy ship with a tether line, ended up getting close enough to Nate and to OS1 before the small boat ended up drifting away from the current. Ended up grabbing them, and according to the logbook, they were out of the water about 8 minutes after the explosion. So I pretty much straddled the keel of the capsized boat, pulled Mike's body across my legs, trying to grab my composure, figure out where everyone else is, what's going on. I could see the helo taking Christopher Watts closer to the ship. I'm just getting pushed further and further away from the ship, being pulled by the current, obviously being on a small boat. I eventually just started working my way back into the water. At this time, my teammate, DC-1 John Fox, who obviously in the Coast Guard with me, he jumped off the boat, basically stripped down to his boxers, threw on a big Mae West type life jacket, big, what you see on the cruise ships and stuff, big orange type life jacket, jumped in the water, and he said the first person he seen was me, climbing up on the rib. Once he got closer to me, he, obviously he's assessing me, making sure I'm okay and everything. You can see my face is all swollen and cut up, and my arm was pretty bad. I thought it was broken. At this point, I really didn't feel much pain, just an adrenaline rush. You really don't think about it, even if you wanted to. Arm was bleeding pretty bad. I had a couple cuts I could see in my actual uniform in my sleeve, and I was bleeding pretty bad from my arm, and all I could see was like a red tint out of my left eye. I had a lot of blood just got thrown into my eye. I could almost barely see out of it just from all the swelling around it. As soon as John Fox came up, he noticed right away that I had BM1 Mike Prenticelli with me. Eventually, one of the officers, the weapon officer off the firebolt, one of the Navy officers, jumped into the water as well, pushing a life ring. Got over to us, so we were able to kind of drape Mike's body over the life ring, kind of get him out of the water a little bit. So the three of us ended up pushing and pulling and kicking and swimming and everything, and eventually got close enough to the ship where the rescue swimmer was able to come to us with the line, handed us the line, and the crew on the ship ended up pulling us in hand by hand. According to the logbook, they had me pretty much in the water for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, from the time of the blast to the time I got back to the ship. Obviously returning stateside, prior to going up to Arlington for the funeral, I was awarded and given the Purple Heart. Obviously it was from the Navy, but given to me by a Coast Guard admiral. About 2 months later after that, I was awarded the Bronze Star with Combat V, or Presidential Distinguishing Device V for Valor. Obviously I'm able to sit here today and talk about it in great detail because I was lucky, I was fortunate enough to, I don't know if it was where I was sitting on the boat, being kind of shielded a little bit from the console of the boat, or who knows. I'm extremely lucky. The way from what NCIS told me about the blast and the way it was configured on the vessel, it was designed to go up and then out. And I think because that we were so close to the vessel, that a lot of the initial blast went up and over our head. If we were maybe further away, or if the charge was designed differently, I'm sure all of us wouldn't be here. Unfortunately, 3 people did get killed. 4 of us were injured, but the 4 of us, we were completely lucky. I don't know how or why, we were just injured rather than killed. In my case, Mike Prenticelli was sitting right next to me. Basically, our legs touching one another, but I'm sitting next to him just with minor injuries on my face and my arm. So I was very fortunate and very lucky for being here today.